very difficult to speak in front of Professor, but I just want to share our recent research about germanium quantum dot with the Prof. Zulkifli group in physics department here in UBC. So, actually, what is our motivation to do research in the area of semiconductor quantum dots? The first one is the optimized growth and detailed characterization of germanium quantum dots are important for device fabrication. As we know, if we want to use the semiconductor quantum dots for device fabrication, we should produce as small as possible, and also the number density also should be the maximum one if we want to use in some optical device or optoelectronic devices. So manifesting an unusual optical behavior of analyzing germanium makes them potential candidate for optoelectronic application. As we know, germanium has 0.8 electron. I mean bulk germanium has 0.8 electron volt band gap energy. But what happened by nanosizing? This band gap is blue shifted to 3 point something. That means it goes from lower energy to the higher energy. That means goes to the visible area, so we can use in the light emitter and some optoelectronic devices. So you know what happened? Why the band gap increases by nanosizing? I think you know in the Scherer equation. So the energy level, if you remember, let me write here. If you consider the particle in the box, the energy level in Scherer equation, if I don't mistake, is divided to 2m. So it doesn't matter. So when we decrease the size, so the energy will increase. In the Scherer equation, energy level. So bulk germanium itself we cannot use in any devices. So but by nanosizing we can use at least in some light emitter devices. The other things, if I remember, we use radio frequency. Can I speak, or I should wait for this problem? So because I think most of you are chemists, so you don't know about radio frequency magnetosphere. This method is suitable for producing large scale production, and also it's very social economic. That means we don't need high temperature, and also we don't need high pressure. If I remember, we prepared this kind of quantum dot, around 8 to 20 nanometer size by only 10 to the power of -3 bar. Torr. Sorry. So no need to high pressure, no need also high temperature, also no need. So we prepare, I think, in substrate temperature of only 300 degree. So we can conclude that RF magnetron sputtering is suitable for large scale production. Not look like MOCVD or I don't know, NBE is not expensive and complicated procedure. It's very simple. Just we eject this molecule from the target. Then by applying high magnet in the substrate, we deposited this material on the substrate. It's very easy. So.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, okay, so this is our motivation. Oh, the other things, most of the researchers, they directly deposit the germanium quantum dot on silicon. So we use silica, I mean SiO2 as a intermediate layer. So it has effect on the top layer because I don't know you have information about gross mode or no. We have three kind of gross mode: Stransky, Krasnov, Palmer, Weber, and Frank van der Merwe. So silicon, germanium on silicon follow SK mode, but germanium on SiO2 follows Walmer-Weber. That means directly this island can grow on the surface. So it's depend on the nature of the material, depend on the lattice mismatch between this kind of material. So that means this is not in the control of us. So it's depend on the how much is the lattice mismatch. For example, below lattice mismatch below 2 follow the Walmer, follow the Frank van der Merwe. Above 4 follows the Walmer-Weber. So between 2 and 4 follows the Stransky cross. So I consider too many papers from 1990 to recent paper. So most of them they use different method. Also they use different kind of quantum dots. But you know this because in this research we consider 3 categories of the samples at the same time together. That means we look like you know, all of these papers, they only focus on one parameter. Then they study one parameters. But in this paper, at the same time, because why I tell this is the paper, because it is already accepted by measurement journal. So at the same time, we consider 3 categories of samples. So this is some literature. This is not important because I just read them to get some idea about this paper. So this is our methodology. First, we prepare 3 kind of samples. The first category has a different annealing temperature. Then we keep constant the other parameters. What is the other parameters? The germanium thickness and also the silicon oxide thickness. That means if I want to tell, we have heterostructure like this. The first layer is silicon, the second layer is SiO2, and the third layer is germanium. That means germanium quantum. So first layer is bulk silicon, then second layer is SiO2, then we switch off the RF magnetron, take it out because at the same time we cannot use 2 targets in this kind of machine. So again we turn on the plus one and we grow the latest germanium layer. So we have three kind of samples, sorry, 3 categories. So we vary the annealing temperature, we keep germanium and silicon oxide and germanium thickness constant. Then we vary the silicon oxide thickness, keep the other 2 constant, and we vary the germanium top layer thickness and keep the other 2 constant. So then we come to the characterization, and as all the material scientists do. First we prepare the sample, then we characterize, then we find something, for example, physics behind of this phenomenon, and we try to explain this phenomenon. So we use this kind of characterization. I think all chemists, people know, familiar by this AFM, FESM, XRD, and ADX. So this AFM mostly physicists use. You know, by AFM we can get the particle size, I mean height and the width, and also we can calculate the ratio of the grain area. Also we can calculate the roughness. The most important thing is roughness that we can calculate by AFM. Also the other things, if I remember, is the grain size. Also we can calculate by AFM. Also the morphology also we can distinguish by AFM, because if I don't mistake, our AFM in physics is contact mode, so we can completely distinguish how other is our quantum dots are pyramidal or spherical, or I don't know, dome-like, so we can distinguish the morphology of our particle by AFM. So FESM also, we can measure the morphology. We can see also that we can calculate the number density, because I told you number density is important. We are trying to make it maximum. I mean the number density. So XRD all knows for structural. Also EDX for elemental analysis. So we use also photoluminescence and Raman spectroscopy for optical properties. By photoluminescence, we can calculate the size. Also, we can calculate the band gap. Then by Raman also we can calculate the size. There is a formula to calculate the size also for optical properties. In the next slide, I will show you. So this is the recipe of our sample. So you can see we vary the annealing temperature. We keep all constant. Then we vary the thickness of germanium, silicon oxide. Then we keep all constant. Then we vary the germanium top layer thickness. We keep the other constant. These parameters all we achieve by ourselves. That means we try one time by 60 seconds. Then we try 80 seconds. During these 5 years, during my PhD and postdoctorate, we find these are the optimum parameters to grow the germanium quantum dots on silicon oxide and also on silicon. So this is the procedure of our research. So we vary the annealing temperature, silicon oxide, and germanium. So this is the first result for this is the first 3 samples with different annealing temperature. As you can see, by increasing the annealing temperature, in our case, the particle size increases. When I'm telling you about the particle size, because our quantum dot is a dome-like shape, so the width and the height both increases by increasing the annealing temperature. So we want to know what happened by increasing the annealing temperature, why the particle size increases. Anyone can answer this question? By increasing annealing temperature, what happened? Why the size increases? No, we found this explanation for this phenomenon. So by increasing the annealing temperature, the interdiffusion of oxygen and silicon between germanium quantum dot and surrounding barrier is increased. When this one increases, that means the S strain decreases. Yeah, the S strain decreases. When the S strain decreases, that means this coalescence of clusters and possible formation of polycrystalline is happening. So again, I'm telling you, by increasing the temperature, the interdiffusion of oxygen and silicon to the germanium quantum dot increases. Yeah, because their kinetic energy increases, so they can easily diffuse to the germanium. So when diffuse, that means the lattice mismatch between germanium or strain between germanium and substrate decreases. When this one decreases, coalescence of cluster happens. That means they combine, they become larger. So this is happening only for this kind of material. Because I have experience by increasing annealing temperature, the zinc oxide particle size decreases. So this is I find for only germanium and silicon oxide. So the other materials we should find the other definition. So as also by increasing the temperature also the density, number density also increases. The particle increases, also number density increases. So why this happen? So annealing temperature causes to increase the kinetic energy of the surface atom. So by increasing the kinetic energy, this atom can travel longer paths on the surface. When they travel, they find a new nucleation site because there are too many nucleation sites on the surface. So they find a new nucleation site, then they form, they grow there. So the number of islands increases by increasing the anionic temperature. So I forgot to tell you this germanium or silicon oxide follow the Walmer as I wrote here, follow the Walmer Weber mode rules. So again, same category, different anionic temperature, we have done XR. So you can see the first, this is at 700, this is at 500 degrees, this is at 300. So by increasing the temperature, these peaks become sharper. More sharper peaks means higher degree of crystallization. So as you can see, the full width at half maximum also decreases. When the full width at half maximum decreases, that means our size increases. So because if I divided the width of the XRD, if this is the XRD peaks, this is the FWH. You can see it here. This is the FWH. This FWHM experiment, FWHM, we call beta experiment. This one is the convolution of three broadening. The first one is the instrument error. Because this is not perfect instrument, so a little, broadening is referred to the error of instrument. The other one is referred to the size. Because of the narrow sizing, some broadening happen. Because X-ray diffraction, when you do for the infinite structure of ordered molecule in the bulk, it should be sharp. But when the number of atoms is limited, so these bright and darkness fringes, they cannot cancel each other. Some broadening happen in the XRD. So some part also coming from the size, and the last one is coming from the strain. So as you know, we have two kinds of strain: compressive strain, tensile strain. Tensile strain doesn't have any broadening in the XRD. Just causes the shift in the XRD. But compressive strain causes the broadening of the XRD. So these three broadening we have. This broadening by instrument we can ignore or we can calculate by comparing with the standard model, for example, for silicon or germanium material. So we can ignore this one because this is very small if we have a good instrument. So we have these two broadening. So that means this peak is the convoluted of these two broadening. One refers to the size, the other refers to the strain. As you know, for Scherer equation, we can write here beta experimental. That means that much broadening that we see by eyes in our real experimental equal to what is the beta? Beta is a k lambda divided by d cosine theta, if I don't mistake. So this is a beta. This is very famous formula. Scherer. I don't know in which year, 90, I don't know, but they find that when the size of the material goes from bulk to nano, this much broadening happen in the XR. And also we can calculate the size by this one. Plus, this beta related to S strain is equal to S strain tangent theta. If we rewrite this formula, instead of tangent, I can write sinus divided by cosinus, then these two cosinus we can bring here. So finally we got this one. So we got this one, beta experimental cosine theta equal to. Sorry, my handwriting is very bad. K lambda divided by d plus plus 4, this is 1, 4 I should be, 4 epsilon sine theta. You just compare this formula by this formula. Y equal to ax plus b. B is y-intercept and a is the slope of the line. Yeah, in mathematics very easy. If this is y, this is x, this y-intercept is this one, and the slope is this one. So if we compare these two, that means this one is the y-intercept and 4 epsilon is the slope. That means sine theta is x, beta experimental cosine theta is y. So that means this is a Scherer formula and this is the Williamson-Hall. So this is the Williamson-Hall formula. That means if we plot beta experimental cosine theta as a function of sine theta or 4 sine theta, this is, I think it's not clear, 4 sine theta, beta experimental cosine theta, then if we plot this one directly, we can calculate strength and size by xr. Yes? Okay? I don't know, my explanation is clear or not. So if you couldn't understand, please tell me to explain it. So by XRD, this way I learned from X-ray diffraction, what written by Coolity. I think it's a very famous book for X-ray analysis. So at the same time, we can calculate the size and also the strength. Then we can compare this size by our AFM size. Should be in agreement. So I forgot to tell, this is also the shift in the XRD. You know, this is because of the change in the lattice constant. So the lattice constant will decreases by annealing because we know there are too many defects and oxygen vacancies inside and also disorder inside our quantum dot by increasing the annealing temperature. This one removed. When it removed, so the lattice constant shrink, decreases. So, and also for this Scherer also, so these are two different characterizations that we extracted from XR. For Scherer, we don't consider this one, and Williamson-Hall is the better analyze for calculating the size and strength together at the same time. Of course, this number with AFM should be all in the same range. Should not have any different. Then this is a FTIR and Raman spectra of course of different samples at different annealing temperature. Still, we are in annealing temperature. We didn't go to the silicon thickness and germanium thickness. So this is a Raman. As you know, Raman is a phonon confinement. That means when we excite the electron to the top layer, mostly they are coming to the same. I mean, we have a ground state, we have an excited state. Mostly they come to the ground state. We filter this one. We don't need, because we call this one as a Rayleigh scattering. But Rayleigh scattering we are not excited because they don't give us any information. So, but some of them comes to the upper energy level. Also, so we have for example, ground state here, then we have different state here. So we excite the electron by energy here. Mostly they come here. We call this one Rayleigh scattering. So the other comes here. Also there are some energy there. So this one also, in Raman spectroscopy, we don't care. We are talking about Raman shift, this much information. Because of this reason, this is the x-axis is Raman shift. So it's very sensitive with the particle size and also with S3. That means in this Raman we can see three things. One refer to the germanium optical phonon, because also for phonon confinement we have two kinds of phonon, optical and acoustic phonon. So if they, this is referred to the germanium optical, this is referred to germanium silicon optical phonon, and this is related to our solid-state silicon optical. So this shows intermixing happen. That means in the bottom of the quantum dot we have alloys of germanium and silicon. This one shows. Because if we don't have alloys, we don't have silicon germanium bond, so this one will not appear in the Raman spectrum. So also, what else we can see in this picture? The bulk Raman spectrum. The Raman spectrum for bulk germanium is happening on 300 centimeter layers. So this much shift, I mean, in our case, this is also, it's small, it's not clear. 301, 301.5, 302. So this much shift to the higher frequency is related to computation of two things. The first one is the quantum confinement. The second one is the S3. So when the quantum confinement happens, so you know we have three kind of, sorry, you become tired, yeah, bro? I'm talking too much, sorry. So we have three kind of confinement, yeah? S-strong confinement, weak confinement, and intermediate confinement. So if we want to see the S-strong confinement effect, we should prepare the size below exciton Bohr. What is exciton Bohr? Exciton Bohr is not the radius of the molecule. Exciton Bohr is the distance between excited electron and between, I mean, the ground state and excited state. So if you want to see the strong confinement effect, you should prepare the particle with this exciton Bohr radius area. Exciton Bohr radius for germanium is 24. So if you remember our size, let me back to this one. This is how much? Around 31. This is okay. We can see the not S1, but we can see with quantum confinement. This one also is 40, almost 2 times more than exciton Bohr of germanium. This one also around 60, 50 something. But you know, confinement effect always happen in 3 dimensions. This is okay. Our width is around 40. But our height is around 4 to 10 nanometers. So in the y direction, in the height direction, we can see the confinement. So the shift in the Raman spectra is a computation of 2 things: S-strain and confinement effect. So confinement effect try to shift to the lower frequency. S-strain try to shift to the higher frequency. So finally, the computation, they fight to each other, finally shifted to the higher frequency. But not too much, only 1 centimeter inverse. So what we can get from FTIR, you know, by increasing annealing, this germanium oxygen bond peaks increases. I told you, because of the interdiffusion of oxygen. Actually, we are not interested to do FTIR. This reviewer asked us to prove something, then we have to do FTIR. Also, I don't have enough information about FTIR. Just I know by increasing the annealing temperature, this peaks that is related to symmetric stretching and asymmetric stretching absorption mode. So symmetric for SiO and asymmetric stretching absorption mode for germanium oxide. By increasing the annealing, first we can see the germanium oxygen, interdiffusion of oxygen in the germanium causes to increase this. By further increasing to 700, this peak shrink decreases, I guess because of the, maybe exhausted of the germanium suboxide. I don't know. This is my idea. So by increasing the annealing, first by interdiffusion of oxygen, some germanium oxygen bond appear, so this peak increases. Then by further increasing of annealing, this one decreases because of germanium suboxide exhausted. This is my idea. I don't know if it's true or not. So then we have done the PN, photoluminescence. So as you know, photoluminescence, always we use for optical properties. I told you for germanium bulk, the band gap, directly we can calculate the band gap by the peak position. So the bulk germanium has 0.8 electron volt. So, but you know, we can see here around 430 something is related to 3 point or 2.9 to 3.2 electron volt. So it's very big shift, redshift. So we cannot explain this much shift by the quantum confinement effect, because the confinement of the electron and hole only can causes a small shift like 0.1 electron volt, not this much. It's around 2 electron volt shifted from the bulk. So we're trying to find this answer why we observe these peaks. So we finally draw this band structure, band gap structure, and answer this question. So you know, this is this SiO2 matrix, or also can relate it to the defects. You know, this energy level is related to the oxygen deficit defect in the intermediate layer. So the electron hole recombination between the valence band in the germanium dot and the conduction band in the oxygen deficit defect can give us this peak. I think it's near to blue or violet. The other things, the recombination of electron from the valence band of silicon to that deficit defect energy level gives us this peak. So two different origination. So by increasing annealing, we can see this peaks decreases. The intensity decreases. It's because of the number of electron hole which are responsible for emission. But these peaks remain the same by increasing the annealing. Of course, you know, because by increasing annealing, we don't want the silicon down layer, and also silicon oxide intermediate layer, and also silicon substrate will not change. The most change is happening on the surface. Because germanium is in the surface, so this change, you can accept this kind of increasing or decreasing in the photoluminescence peak. But this peak remains the same because no shift, also there is no change in the intensity. So now we are going to the other three categories of samples. Changing the silicon oxide intermediate level thickness. So you know, by increasing the silicon oxide intermediate level thickness, we can get the higher density quantum dot, also a smaller size. You know, from 14 comes to 30 comes to 25. how we can describe this phenomenon? So low density of quantum dots is appear in the first sample because of the number of, because usually the silicon oxygen bond will isolated the dots on the surface. So when we don't have sufficient silicon oxygen bond in the first sample, because only 5 nanometer thickness of SiO2. So the few insufficient number of silicon oxygen bond causes to see the only few quantum dots on the surface. But by increasing the silicon oxide intermediate layer thickness, because of the more silicon oxygen bond that is responsible for isolated the quantum dots on the surface, we can see too many. Then what happened after? So these are completely isolated. You can see by naked eyes also you can distinguish one by one. But what happened here by increasing the silicon oxide to 15 nanometers thickness, what happened? Then they again agglomerated, coalesced with each other. So I describe this phenomenon as follows. I think by by increasing the thickness of silicon oxide, these germanium atoms could bound with the dangling band at OO structure. Dangling band at OO structure. So when germanium interact with this bond, that means again this SiO bond in these samples decreases, so they cannot be isolated. So this is my explanation. So let's go to the next slide, because again this is the FTIR for these three samples. So by increasing the silicon oxide thickness, intensity increases, shows the more number of SiO band. But here you can see coming from these two are same, this silicon oxygen, but coming to this one is become more. But we can compare these two with each other. Germanium oxygen is more than the other one. So I think my explanation is true. That means by increasing silicon oxide intermediate, of course silicon oxygen bond is increases. But at the same time germanium oxygen also increases. So the previous AFM result I think is true. We cannot see the isolated dot at the last sample. So this is the cross section FESM. Unfortunately, the quality is not okay, but we cannot do anything. We have to accept this one. So we have done the cross section FESM and point EDX analysis. So we just confirm there are this kind of material or exist in our samples. That means the existence of germanium is proved by this picture. Also, the ratio of silicon by germanium, germanium by oxygen, silicon by oxygen, we can calculate these things from the EDX and use them for explanation the FTIR and photoluminescence. This C also coming from the double type tape we used for fixed. This is also Raman spectra. If you compare, you think these are same, but actually there are very small changes happening between these three kind of sample and the other one. So this is also the Raman spectroscopy. The origination of the peaks are same as I told you. It is referred to the germanium. This is germanium silicon, and this one silicon. But by increasing the silicon oxide intermediate level, the germanium peaks increases. Roman's increasing peak intensity is also exactly like XRD, related to the more crystallization of the samples. Because for bulk, the Raman is very sharp and intense peak. So going from 5 nanometers to 15 nanometers, germanium intensity increases. Of course, this one remains same because this is a bulk substrate. But also the interesting thing is decreasing the silicon germanium peaks by increasing the silicon intermediate layer. And this one is a photoluminescence. Again, we can see this 0.17 electron volt shift from going from 5 to 15 nanometers. It's related to the quantum confinement effect. Also, we can see the increment for the increment in the intensity of the peak, which is related to higher number of electron hole, recombination, then lower energy transfer to the down layer, because now we have 15 nanometers, so lower energy can transfer to the down layer in compare with the only 5 nanometers. This is 5 nanometers, this is 15 nanometers. So also this peaks also increases by increasing the SiO2 thickness. If you remember, this peak remains same by annealing temperature. But when we increase the silicon oxide intermediate level, this one increases. That means this one proves this argument also is true. This argument. The origination of this peaks is from this one to this one. Because when we change this thickness, that one changes. So, and these are the last category of our sample. We vary the germanium top layer. This is a schematic diagram for growing, for increasing the top layer germanium. These are all germanium. This black dots. So first because they have kinetic energy, they move in the surface, they find the nucleation site and grows, nucleating. Then by increasing, this is a coalescence and agglomeration of some of these kind of materials, they become larger. Then again, by further the position of germanium become larger, then the other atoms, when they come to this one especially, they create a new nucleation site on top of this germanium and create this feature. That means in the down layer there are too many big quantum dot size. In the top of this big quantum dot there are too many small also quantum dots appear. This one is also FTIR of these three kind of samples, and this is Raman spectra also. And this one is the photoluminescence of these three kind of samples. So again, this by increasing germanium, this one remains same because it doesn't have any effect because germanium is the last one, and the recombination with the oxygen deficit effects give this peak, not this peak. So this peak is not related to germanium, again it remains the same, but by increasing the germanium thickness, this peak's intensity also increases because as you know the number density, if you see this picture, the number density here is increases, so the number of recombination increases and causes to increase the density. So this is So the conclusion of our research. So actually, if you read too many papers from 1990 to 2015, by this kind of sputtering machine with very high pressure, I mean 10 to the power of -3 is not the low pressure, it's high pressure. It is very difficult to get this nanoparticle, this much size quantum dots. So because we vary too many parameters to find the optimum parameters, so finally we got, I think the minimum quantum dot we can grow by this equipment is around 6 to 7 nanometers. And this is also acknowledgement. So that's all.
So thank you very much to Dr. Samavati for a very interesting talk on the germanium quantum dot and that's silicon matrix research work. So I would like to open the floor for any questions. So I do have questions. So from here, I noticed that you're actually optimizing different analytics